welcome to the Stroking the Soul podcast. My name is Anthony, and I'm your host. And this is the very first episode. My first guest is Firefly. Firefly is a Tantric masseur, coach, and facilitator from Greenwich, London. His work is dedicated to helping gay and trans men discover personal growth and healing through the power of Tantra. Please welcome to the show, Firefly. Welcome to the show, Firefly.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So I figured let's start by talking about your name. Could you please explain the origin of your name, Firefly, and its link to the radical fairies?
Okay, it's got a couple of kind of different meanings. Firstly, when I was training in tantric massage a long time ago, I was in Prague, and I'd never seen fireflies before. And I was in Prague. It was in the mountains in Prague, and yeah, in the evening I went out and I just saw these magical beings that were kind of dancing, and it was so beautiful. And yeah, I'd never seen anything like it. And then I was introduced to radical fairies many years later, and you had to choose a name. You have to kind of, in a way, it's kind of like a rebirth of yourself, you know, and you choose a name, or you're given a name. And that moment had such a sort of a big impact on me, just seeing these, you know, these little bits of magic. And it was linked to Tantra, so it just sort of, it sat perfectly with me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And yeah, no, absolutely, the sight of a million fireflies at night just lighting up the sky. Oh yeah, it's just it's stunning. There's nothing quite like it. I remember the first time that I saw that too. I was a little kid, and it was out on a lake somewhere. I was visiting a relative, and I remember just seeing that for the first time. And yeah, it's just absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it's magical. Do you know the radical fairies?
Oh yes, I know several fairies and former fairies. My roommate, as a matter of fact, is a former fairy from the 90s or some time ago.
You make it sound like it's old hat.
Well, no, you know, I mean, I think that was his era. But yeah, no, I know several rad fae. So could you please describe the nature of your work and how you got into teaching Tantra and what Tantra means to you?
Okay, so originally it's quite a long story in the sense of over a long amount of time, because I originally started doing yoga and meditation when I was, I don't know, sort of 18 or something. And I particularly I found a book on Kundalini yoga, which I loved. And Kundalini yoga is actually often called Tantra yoga, but I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
I love the fact that yoga could be used to kind of heal yourself and to work on issues, and you know, like through meditation and through chanting and through doing postures, you know, holding postures. So I was fascinated by that. And then I was in theatre. I was a singer and dancer. And so when I was out of work, I trained in basic massage so that I could do that sort of between jobs, you know. But luckily at the time, I never really needed to use it. So every now and then I'd use it on sort of, you know, a friend or a lover or something. And then, let me think, what was that? I started getting involved with sort of the sex positive, sex conscious community. Kind of, I say straight, it's not, you know, it's open, but mainly sort of a heterosexual base. And then although I was enjoying that, I then started to look into sort of more sort of gay conscious sex places. And I looked up on a Tantra retreat that was also training in tantric massage. So I thought, oh, well, I know massage and Tantra, and sort of, you know, it linked in with this sort of the spiritual side of me. And then that was when we went to Prague and saw the Fireflies.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went to another event, and people kept telling me I was a fairy. They kept saying, "Oh, you need to find the fairies. You are just, you are a fairy, even though you don't know it." And so I started finding out where the radical fairies were in the UK, and went to some of the retreats with the fairies and loved it. And I found my like inner child that I'd been trying to kind of kill. Literally, like during a meditation we did, I sort of met my inner child, and I remembered how beautiful I was, like this little child that was so feminine, and that I'd grown up hating and trying to kill. Like, I did not want anyone to see that part of me, and I then overcompensated by trying to be really, really sort of masculine and get rid of that kid. And then it was only, through the fairies, which is all about just, expressing. It's not all about, but a lot of it is expressing your femininity and dressing up and playing and bringing out that child again. And I kind of learned and got to know like my authentic self again. And then I started using the tantric massage, which I'd learned because I kind of got the courage to not feel ashamed of working sort of, with sexuality. And I did that for a couple of years, and I started to feel a little bit of a fraud. I started to think, like, I don't have enough knowledge. All I have is this little bit of training I did in massage, but I don't have this knowledge of Tantra. Tantra is such a huge subject.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first course I looked up was a teacher training course. And I had no intention of becoming a teacher, but I thought, I want this information. And then that was when I went on this course, and I had some amazing, life-changing experiences of being in states of complete bliss and ecstasy, and my whole body, things I'd never experienced before, ever. And it was just like this hot light bulb went off, and I went, oh my God, I need to let people know this is possible.
Yeah, it's so liberating to rediscover that, to like reawaken within yourself. Because a lot of us, especially as queer men, tend to suppress that part of ourselves, our femininity or whatever it may be, that queer, that fairy essence of ourselves. And I went through it too. My journey was completely different. But I think I sort of came into my own, like when I really started to feel confident in who I was and what I was doing. When I was a musician, I was playing in bands for a while, and I would dress up on stage, and it was sort of an expression of my queerness, sort of like being a radical fairy, sort of my way of doing that, and it's sort of when I realized that all this confidence that I had in me all along that I didn't know was there. I wasn't really as timid as I thought I was. There was a lot more to me than that. But I think it's it's such a beautiful feeling to like I said, rediscover yourself, to sort of tap into that long forgotten inner child
and start to love it and care for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and once you do, you sort of look at it differently, because I know my perception of myself when I was a child is different now as an adult, and I look back to when I was a child. I sort of see things in a different perspective now than I did back then. And of course, that has to do with age and experience, but also, things were not, not as not quite what I thought they were when I was a kid. I mean, because we're young and we're naive and we don't know the ways of the world yet. But yeah, but just to see that journey from two different perspectives.
Mm.
It's sort of like almost sort of like Alice stepping through the looking glass, going to the other side.
Yeah, yeah, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
But I think this story that we're saying is so common for queer people, especially, and sacred intimacy and tantra, and it's such good work for people to relearn to accept that part of themselves and not be ashamed of it. So much shame, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so much shame. I mean, we get so much shame from all areas of society. I mean, even from within our own communities, we get shame. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. Somebody just yesterday, I was really taken aback actually. I met this guy who was a theatre producer through some friends, and we were talking, and he was joking. He had a big personality. He was joking, and I said something about a theatre festival, a gay theatre festival, and he went, "Oh, of course, because you're gay, right?" And I was really taken aback. I was like, I went straight away back to that little kid going, "Oh my God, someone thinks I'm gay," and then part of me went, "I shouldn't be ashamed of being gay." And then all these voices in my head just screaming, and it's like, wow, I'm still like working on that shit.
I've experienced that too. Like, sometimes it just takes a certain comment to sort of trigger that, that emotion, that memory. It just sort of opens it up. So you said that you were in theater. Are you a singer? Do you sing?
Not anymore. I mean, I sing for myself, but I don't sing for other people anymore.
What?
They ask.
Well, yeah. What voice type do you have?
Tenor.
Tenor.
Tenor. Yeah.
I'm a baritone.
Oh, right, okay. We should do a song.
I played in bands and stuff, and I've also done choir stuff too, singing in choir, including gay and lesbian choir locally here. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, since I've been doing more work where I'm learning about mantras and things, it's like the importance of singing more than anything is this, putting these vibrations through your body. Just, it's like whether you believe in the kind of the woo-woo side of it, of cleansing your energies, or the fact that it's vibrations that just kind of like massaging your body. It's so important. Singing is really, really an important part of the culture.
Yeah, and I mean, and everything is vibration. I mean, our speaking is vibration. Our bodies are always in vibration. We're just molecules vibrating very fast.
Yeah. And I'm also saying, I've heard that if you say like positive affirmations, there was a glass of water or something, and they had, you may have heard of this, some scientists, and they put like positive words by one and not by the other, and one grew better, something like that. But there's something in that, repeating kind of these positive words, but sounds, that's what mantras are. It's just
absolutely. I mean, and the more you repeat them, the more power you put behind them, because you just keep moving them forward, just keep producing them.
I've actually started trying to only listen to songs that have a really like affirming part to them. So many songs are like, "Oh, I've broken my heart, I'm so sad, this is," and I never used to, but that goes through your psyche, so I'm like skipping songs, so it's only like something really like positive. And actually you find that a lot of takes you along listening to a lot of kind of spiritual music, or like Satnam Kaur, and these I think a lot of them are American singers, but they sing in the and they come sort of from a tantra world.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Interesting.
And it's songs like "I Am Bliss" and "We Are," "We Are the World" or something. But but it's really, I think there's something in it, and only listening to positive music.
Yeah. I never really thought of that, but it actually makes a lot of sense. And I tend to listen to, I mean, I wouldn't say a lot of sad music, but there are many songs that I enjoy that are, kind of sad. So,
Yeah. Well, everything has its place, doesn't it?
sure, that's true. So let's talk more about the correlation between and integration of sexuality and spirituality, because that's also something that's very important to my work as well. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that and why, how they're connected and the importance of identifying the connection between them.
Okay. Um, so for me, as I was saying to you, that when I was younger, I came across Kundalini yoga, and that whole belief system, and even, I'm sure even people that are skeptical can understand that certain emotions that we feel in our body, we feel in certain places. So if you're feeling sexual, you feel it in your sort of groin area. If you're feeling stuck for words, it's here. If you're feeling nervous, it's in your belly. So these are where the chakra lies.
The chakras, yep.
The chakras. So the very base chakras, which are, basically your arse and your cock, the first two, we have to be able to wake them up to be able to raise through the rest, because otherwise you're suppressing them and you're trying to start coming to a path. The idea is, for people that don't know, is once you open and cleanse the chakras, finally, your final one, which is the crown of your head, take you to a place of ecstasy, bliss, enlightenment. It's given sort of lots of different words. So my belief is you have to start with the sexual energy to take it through, through to your heart and then through to your intuition. And so it's actually quite simple in my mind. It's like you have to use sex to be able to raise from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I always like to say that that sexuality and spirituality, they go hand in hand. They're sort of like two sides of the same coin. But we're culturally and throughout society, we're conditioned to separate them. Where there's this huge space between them, and they're literally considered opposites of each other. In a lot of religious and cultural mindsets. But I think the beauty of Tantra and sacred sexuality and all these practices is to rediscover that within ourselves. It's like the staff of Hermes, the caduceus with the snakes around it. And those snakes go together. They wind around each other. They're not separate. And that's the inner alchemy of our being. I mean, our sexuality and our spirituality are our body and soul. I mean, they're connected. They don't really exist outside of each other.
So let's just talk about that. The caduceus, did you call it?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because that is also the symbol that's used for the Kundalini symbol.
It is. Yeah. There's been a lot of discussion about how similar they are, and people have even taken the chakras and lined them up on the staff as well.
Also, the company that I work with is Tantra for Gay Men, and one of the main sort of points that we make is that the moment of orgasm is the moment of the same moment of enlightenment that we're trying to reach through meditation, through yoga meditation, through sitting in a cave for 5 years. That one moment where there's nothing else on your mind. Your mind is completely clear. You're completely in the moment. You're not thinking about the past or the future. you're completely present in that moment, and that's the sort of the key, and that's why it's easier to use sexual energy to get there, because that's the key for being able to understand this moment. And then we use tantra or sexual practices to prolong that, and then, you know, ideally to be able to live in that state. Although I'm not quite sure that how possible that is to live in the state, but it's nice to experience it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and that's so true. I mean, that's just so aligned with all my practices and all the stuff that I've read on Tantra and all these different subjects. What was that guy's name? He wrote I forget his name. I think he was English, but he wrote a book on Tantra, and I can't remember what it was. But he said that and about the orgasm being that point of enlightenment. And I've seen other people express it in different terms. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's sort of like in that moment, it's sort of like a direct line to God, to the divine. You know, we're instantly connected to the divine for that one moment.
Which is maybe why the authorities and church want to suppress us from being sexual, so we don't, to stop us having that divine kind of connection.
That's right. Because if everyone knew it, they wouldn't need the church. They could discover that on themselves, you know. And yeah, so I think that's just absolutely. I think it's absolutely important to recognize that. I mean, and not only just in our work, but I just think just all across society as well. You know, like how crucial our sexuality is to our lives. You know, no matter who we are or what our gender or sexual orientation is or what have you. I mean, it's a fundamental aspect of our lives. You know.
We say if it's happening in your sex life, it's happening in your real life. So if in sex, you know, you don't know how to offer what you want, and you don't know how to express yourself, that's probably happening in your day-to-day life as well. You're letting people walk all over you, you know. So if you can address these issues at the core in the sort of where they're happening in your sex life, then it does make a difference to the rest of your life. You see people changing. They'll have not even huge experiences, but they'll just have they do some work on finding out what really works for them in their body, what they enjoy, and they start to become more confident about themselves, their sexuality, their body, and then it just leaks on. It becomes part of them. So yeah, it's really important work. I'm really passionate about this work that we do, because it's as you say, it's tried to be suppressed, but it's amazing. It's so powerful.
Yeah, I think, and I think we need it too. I mean, as gay men, or even just as men more broadly, because I think that a lot of men are sort of missing that in their lives. You know, they get straight men in particular sort of you know, fall into the narrative that's been written by society, that, you know, you have to, if you're a man, you have to act this way. And I think a lot of straight men would benefit from this type of work, because I think, I don't know, I think there a lot of them are missing something. They're sort of there's still that same sort of disconnection from something within them, but within straight guys it's different. But it's not at the same time, because I mean, we're all sort of susceptible to the same societal projections on us, you know. I mean, queer men have to suppress their queerness, and straight men have to suppress their queerness too, because, you know, because they can't act queer because it's not manly, you know.
But I do think the difference is, because I have this conversation quite a lot with people, is that as a kid, I don't know about you, but from about 3 years old, I thought there was something wrong with me, because I knew that I was different to everyone else because of my sexuality. I didn't know it was sexuality. I just knew there was something wrong with me. So I'm sure that happens to lots of people in the straight world on different levels. but as queer people, there is a thing that we all share, that from a very, very young age, we think we're wrong. So that's where this work can really help queer people.
I agree. I agree with you completely. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the importance of safe spaces where queer men can be their authentic selves without judgment or shame, and share these sort of intimate connections with each other.
I think it goes to kind of what we were saying already about if you can be in a place where you're allowed to be authentic, to be true to yourself, then that bleeds into the rest of your life. So that's what's so wonderful about the fairy space, because fairy space particularly attracts queer men, gay men, queer and women, queer people that don't fit into mainstream gay culture. And to be able to come to a place where anything is accepted and you will be loved for that means that people start to rediscover themselves, and what we were talking about at the beginning, and being in a space where they know whatever they do, they can, whatever clothes they put on, whatever sort of happens, they'll be loved for that. Whatever way they want to speak, whatever they want to call themselves, however they want to, project themselves. And yeah, it's so important. It then leads to the rest of their life. And I don't know, I mean, I'm not sort of out there enough, but I don't know how many spaces there are for, really for queer people. But, queer, I mean, it's all such blurred lines about gay, queer, and the rest. But I think there probably is a certain culture which is very mainstream gay men, and queer people don't always fit into that. I mean, in London, for example, there's quite a queer cabaret scene, and if you spend a lot of time in that, which I did for a little while, when you go to just your standard gay bar in central London, it's such a different vibe. It's such a different vibe. It's just there's more camaraderie, I think, in the queer scene, because everyone is sort of supporting each other, whereas it's lost that, I think, in mainstream gay culture. People don't seem to want to support each other, more drag each other down.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that that in the past there was more of an effort to have community spaces for queer people in general. I know that when I was growing up in the 90s, that was very much a big thing that was happening at that time. And I think, the culture sort of shifted when we went into the 2000s and into today. I've talked to some gay men that are a generation or two older than me, and they've said that they've noticed in their lifetime that a lot of community spaces have fallen away. That there aren't a lot of those spaces anymore that they used to rely on. And I think it's a very complicated thing, but I think that part of it has to do with how integrated we've become into mainstream society, as opposed to a time when all we had was our own community. All we had was ourselves to rely on to support each other. And I think that people have become sort of more, how do I say, self-guided. They sort of don't have that sort of community support like people used to. It's a very different time. I sort of see queer people of a younger generation having a very different experience than what I had when I was growing up. And it's funny because I feel so old in comparison, and I'm not not old at all. But just to see the difference, and I'm sure that generations older than I am have the same thing. It was a different call.
I think they've really lost something, that younger queer people today, because there used to be, gay bars,
Mhm.
and you would go there and you may get to sort of know regulars there or whatever. And there was, for me, I was sort of maybe at the end of that era as such, so it wasn't as friendly, but still, you could go in there and you'd see similar faces, and yeah, there was sort of a place to go. I mean, I met my husband there in a gay bar, and we've been together for 20 years now. But now a lot of the gay bars are closing in regional places. The gay bars are all closing, and that one way that's good, because they're saying we don't need a gay bar anymore because gay people can go to any bar and where everyone's accepted. But it makes it much harder to meet anyone, and then people are only meeting each other on apps and stuff, and
Yeah.
especially the gay culture apps are just about meeting up for sex.
Mhm.
And then you get stuck in, all we're going to do is stay in this first chakra and never move up.
Yeah. So true. So true. Speaking of chakras, I have my own take on that I use in my practice. I mean, obviously, we have many chakras. We have many energy
Yeah.
centers in our body. In my own practice, I tend to focus on three because I think they're the three most important ones for the work that I do, and I feel that they need to be aligned. They need to be in balance, and that is the cock, the heart, and the mind.
Hmm.
And I think they're so essential. I mean, the heart, especially because it's in the center of everything. And I feel like a lot of guys skip over the heart. They sort of they sort of maybe go from cock to mind. It's sort of this connection between the two heads, but the heart isn't in
Hmm.
it. And I think that's
Yeah.
that's missing in a lot of gay culture in general.
Yeah, that's so true. And I've heard, and I've done work as well, what you're saying about the three chakras, because the belief is that with those three, the rest will take care of themselves, sort of, by working on the
Hmm.
cock,
Yeah,
heart, and mind. The
I've
rest
seen
take care of themselves.
similar ones too. I've seen some like some old alchemical texts that talk about like the three orbs, and then and some in Taoist stuff like the Dantian are similar to that. They're sort
Mm,
of the three energy centers. So yeah, I've seen
that's really good.
similar, but I sort of developed my own system because I really feel that they're sort of the most important for this erotic work.
Mm,
We sort of tend to get stuck in one or the other. A lot of us get stuck in the groin and the cock area, and some of us are stuck up here inside of our minds.
oh
We
yeah,
don't we
definitely.
don't we don't connect to the rest of it. So, but yeah, I think just having the balance between the three is so crucial. I mean, if nothing else, those three.
Yeah, balance on. It's funny. I had a client the other day, and we were talking about exactly this, because he was saying when he's attracted to someone, he sort of feels it in his cock, and then he goes through his mind of, is this sort of going to work? And then maybe he'll then take it to his heart.
Mhm.
And but if you can balance all that to start with, he's very much sort of jumping between them rather than having it balanced and be able to make a sort of
Yeah, it's more
decision, but
about
feel it from three places.
it's more about the communication between them. You sort of have to check into all three of them. So the men who come to see you, are they a range of different ages, ethnicities, and body types? And I ask this, not saying this about you and your tantric practice, but uh, what I notice more broadly in the world of tantra and sacred sexuality and erotic massage and all these different things is that there is a lot of sort of almost sort of a body fascism. Like I see a lot of the same types of beautiful white people over and over again, and I do see other people too, other different bodies and other people of color. But I do think that there is in a lot of sacred sexuality spaces it's very an image problem, I would say. Do you have any thoughts or experiences on that?
I don't find that. All my clients are so different, as you say, like all ages, all shapes and sizes. Yeah, they're all so different. But it is very common that they all have negative body image, even if, no matter what their body is, you know, it could be big, small, tall, slim, whatever their body is, they all seem to have a body image issue. So there are sort of practices of Tantra that we do where it's sort of looking at your shadow side, but then also there's a great practice where you look in the mirror and you kind of do a body reading, saying which parts of your body you love, which parts and actually you don't say what you don't like, you just sort of skip. You say, you know, for example, let's go, you'll say, I like my eyes, I like my nose, my lips, I like my dinner, and you don't say what you don't like about yourself. So you're only saying these positive things, and it's just about finding those bits of you that that you can love. I have a real I have a very strong belief about what love is, and I'm not actually sure if everyone else would agree with it. But because people say, you know, RuPaul's the most famous one. If you can't love yourself, then who else can love you? Whatever it is, I've obviously watched it a lot. Can't remember it.
If you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love someone else?
Could I get an amen in here? But I don't think it's so much about loving yourself. I think it's about learning how to let love in. Because love is the energy that makes everything. You know, love is universal energy, and we're so closed off to it that once you learn to open your heart and just realize that, oh my God, love is everywhere. I don't need to get it from one person because it's absolutely everywhere. That body image and all that kind of stuff becomes, I know we have to deal with it in this world, so it is a real thing, but you come to a place where you understand that there's so much more beyond what this sort of reality that we have to live every day. And that's why you have to keep up the sort of meditation and stuff to be able to try and stay with that realization that we are love. But then we have to come back and live our normal lives, and you look in the magazines and everyone's got a certain type of body that yours isn't like. So it's, you know, it's a balance, isn't it?
I have a mantra that I use. It is, I love myself, I make love to myself, I am loved, I am love.
Beautiful. We really are.
Yeah, we are. And so many don't realize it. We're just so closed off to it.
But when you have these experiences, what the experiences I've had where I've been lost through doing a tantric practice and from using sexual energy, working with a partner, and getting yourself into this kind of, you know, orgasmic state, and suddenly losing yourself in that state and your whole body being taken over with this feeling of, you know, euphoria, and realizing that this is real, you know, and I can access this. And if you don't know that, then you're still stuck in this kind of reality of what's crap. But once you actually know that, wow, there's actually this out there. I mean, you know, we're bordering on like religion now, and I sound a bit evangelical, but it's kind of what I've experienced. And some of the people that I work with, when, you know, we're talking about you know, sort of work that a lot of people don't get straight away because you have to be able to get completely out of your mind. But some of the people I work with, when they're here, they start to understand that they do get to that place.
So earlier you mentioned how big and broad Tantra is. Could you talk a little bit about the differences between classical Tantra versus like the Western or Neo Tantra?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't want to go into too much because it can get a bit like a history lesson. But I've actually been finding more and more that there are real strong links between the two. Because in classical Tantra, it's non-dualist. So it believes that everything is in existence at the same time. So there's no right or wrong, good or bad, it all just exists. Well, that's exactly what we do in Neo-Tantra, because what we're saying is that there's no shame in sex. Sex exists with everything else. So let's celebrate sex as well, like we would celebrate everything.
Yeah.
All the chakra system, that's all from classical Tantra that's taken over. The only difference I would really think is classical Tantra doesn't specifically talk about sex at any point, but it doesn't not talk about it. Right. It's about how you live your whole life. So the classical Tantra, it's about like being in the moment. More than anything, it's about really living in the moment and seeing the glory and joy in every single moment. And so you can apply that to sex. And I think it was actually Osho in the 70s, the Guru Osho. He said that people in the West were so stuck in our heads, how are we ever going to be able to experience things in our body and get into a spiritual state? So he brought it to sex more than anything and said, this is where you guys are really locked off and are really stuck, and we need to free that up. And then people became obsessed with tantric sex. And a lot of the time when if I say I work in Tantra, people just think it's just sex. They don't understand that it's a much bigger subject than that. But yeah, so the similarities are really clear. If anything, Neo-Tantra doesn't, maybe it does, it doesn't talk about bringing all these things into your everyday life, but that sort of happens without it needing to be kind of taught. Because recently I was in India for 3 months. I did a Tantra yoga course. And one of the most amazing things was we had this master who would come and talk Tantra philosophy to us every day. It was amazing. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to go and speak to him. And he was brilliant because he was, the whole time, he was like a comedian, really. He was like, don't take it all so seriously. You need to just find, if someone's bringing out bad energy and, like giving you bad vibes or whatever, then just say, this is not serving me, and go somewhere else. He's like, you don't need to make it into a big problem. Or you may have a question, like I have a question, you'd say, hold that question, you might forget it. So I used to love. But I can't even remember, like he would have such, I think it was just because it was so real what he would say, that it was just comical. You never heard people say things so sort of straight. And that was interesting because that was classical Tantra. And that yoga style was classical Tantra. But it still uses, in Neo-Tantra, we use a lot of breath and sound and movement. That's how it's simplified. Because in classical Tantra, it's the same thing, but it's called pranayama, it's called mantras, and it's called asanas, but it's exactly the same thing. That's what was so exciting for me, because I think they thought when I was on the course, oh, he's sort of one of the Neo-Tantra people, a bit of sort of a fraud or whatever. But yeah, I was finding all these like similarities that were so clear in all of the work.
Yeah, it's really sort of a shame that Tantra in the West is almost exclusively associated with sex. I mean, that's sort of the mindset of most people. And it's sort of the reason why, well, I mean, I guess it's one of many reasons why, that I don't call what I do Tantra, even though there are tantric practices. I mean, I do use breathing and like Mula Bandha and all these other different things. So so I do use like tantric and yogic practices, but I don't really call it what I do Tantra. But also because my practice is just so eclectic. I mean, it is just sort of borrowing from lots of different things, not just that tradition. But I don't know. I mean, I don't have necessarily a negative association with that word. I just didn't feel that it was appropriate to summarize what I do. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. I mean, for me, my kind of all the knowledge I have has come through a particular Tantra school, although I'm now sort of learning other things. So then I haven't yet particularly sort of created a style that is unique to me. I'm very much using tantric practices as they are set down.
Yeah, and there is nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that's great. I never had any sort of like training or school or anything. I was sort of on the path of myself of self-learning as I go. But I think it's wonderful that people have that a lot of people have sort of this foundation to their practice. That's based on whether it's Tantra or something else. But yeah, I never really did. I sort of wanted to absorb everything. Like, give me all the knowledge of the world, and I'll sort of synthesize it into something that makes sense to me. And that's basically been my journey, so far. Yeah,
that's what happens with tantric massage, actually, because lots of people will call themselves tantric masseurs, and so they should, because as I was saying before, tantra encompasses everything. So even if some people will disagree with me in my world, but I think if somebody gives you a Swedish massage and they wank you off at the end and they call that Tantra, then who's to say that's not Tantra? It might not be using tantric practices, but still it's somehow expressed sexuality. But I kind of created my work through my own kind of learnings of mixing some of the meditations from yoga classes and through my own learnings on the chakra system. So in part of my sessions, I will do a guided meditation that goes through the chakra system and includes certain breathing techniques in each place. And that's kind of stuff that I've picked up here and there. So I guess in the actual massage experience.
So speaking of massage, your work involves sort of intimate, interpersonal forms of touch. How would you say that that self-touch plays a part not only in your work but in your own life?
Actually, tonight I was doing an online workshop on self-touch, and I don't do it enough. But when I do it, I kind of go, "Oh my God, this is what we should be doing." But it takes time.
It does.
So you have to be able to allow yourself some time. But yeah, I mean, you can have amazing experiences through doing self-pleasure and doing, especially chakra breathing. Have you ever come across that? I know, like Osho particularly did a meditation of chakra breathing, and if you do self-pleasuring while doing this meditation, it takes it even to a higher place that you can't do just through doing the meditation. But tonight I was doing an ecstatic body class, which it's about waking up your body somewhere between sort of a tickle and sort of something firmer, but just really slowly feeling like again, it's about being in the moment and really trying to be aware of every single sensation, like every hair on your body, how that feels, and really waking. And the more you do it with the sound and the breathing, making the more you make the sound, the less silly you feel. So it actually becomes really genuine, and you kind of go ah 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 ah, and then it just becomes your sort of just moaning in joy. And yeah, and it wakes your whole body up, so that then when you go into a kind of sexual stimulation, like nothing sexual has been, it's just your body, nothing genital. So when you start bringing in the genitals, you're already flying, and then you're starting to bring in sexual energy, and you can do that on your own.
What I do, the work that I do is focused mainly on masturbation and self-pleasure as a spiritual practice, as a practice of self-love and getting in touch with oneself. And I think that's so important, because I think a lot of people are sort of out of touch with themselves. We live in a society where we're always being pulled outside of ourselves. We're always being distracted by, the media and politics and what someone else is doing and what's going on in the world and this thing and that thing and social media and all these different things. And we're always outside of ourselves. But it's so important to take that time, and to really take that time to go within yourself and to touch yourself and to get back in touch with yourself and really sort of learn how to feel your body again.
So many people don't know what their body likes, because they haven't spent that time with themselves. They've always just relied on someone else touching them how they want, how that person wants to touch them. But to actually spend time, like you're saying, discovering your own body, it's so important. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. I know. I think that's why, I think we need to sort of change a lot of cultural attitudes around self-pleasure, because, there's still a lot of shame and stigma attached to it. And also this mentality that it's inferior or less than. It's like, oh, that's not real sex. It's it's just a second-rate sex. It's for the guy who can't get laid. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna jerk off.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But it really shouldn't
And
be.
I've heard that some people, straight people, if their husband was masturbating, that's considered wrong. Like that's considered a sin or something, because he's masturbated. That's really strange to me. It's like, surely he should be allowed to enjoy himself when he wants to, or she.
Yeah.
Both people should be able to.
Yeah,
have self-pleasure.
We really sort of need to treat them as sort of separate but equally important. I mean, we need to have. I mean, obviously that intimacy with partner, but we also need to have that time with ourselves and our own bodies too. And I think that we sort of really need to change the way the discussions that we have around this topic, especially with people in relationships. To understand the importance of intimacy with each other, and also we need time for ourselves.
Do you do one-to-one self-pleasuring training?
I do. Yeah, that's what I do with my coaching is one-to-one training. Yeah.
And how do your clients, what effects does it have on their life, or whatever? Do they get back to you sort of feedback and say how it's?
Well, I haven't had many clients, but I will say that I tend to get. It's funny because the men that come to me that either they want coaching or they're just looking for some sort of advice or something, because I have all different men that come to me for all different things, and that's the thing, is that they're really sort of looking for something different. I have some men that have very specific needs regarding their masturbation or their pleasure. And some that are more in it for the spiritual side of it. So I mean, it's really a little bit of both. And I'm trying to get more people who are interested in the sacred sexuality, spiritual side of things, because that's really the basis of what I do. But I really want to acknowledge the whole person. There's a sex coaching model called MEBS, MEBES, and it stands for mind, energy, body, emotions, and spirit. And sort of recognizing all of these aspects of ourselves as a coach, looking at, the whole person rather than just focusing on one aspect of them, to acknowledge that we're whole and we're complicated. And I think that's just true of, I mean, it's true of all of us, but what I find with, I find it especially true with working with men is that they're very, very complicated creatures. I mean, in great ways, but also in sometimes very frustrating ways too. Some men tend to be sort of on a one-track mind when it comes to sex. You know what I mean? They're sort of all in their genital region and not connected with everything else.
Yeah, I heard someone say the other day that, and I'm not sure, well, gender is always a sort of interesting subject, but saying that men are more in their sort of, sexual regions and women are more in their hearts. But I'm not sure, personally, I'm much more in my heart, but I'm sure maybe on the whole, if you looked on the whole, maybe more men are just in their cock.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think a lot of that too comes from sort of comes from our culture, but at the same time, we sort of have a culture that's against it. It's sort of weird how we've sort of attached all this shame and stigma to the penis, and yet we've also weaponized it at the same time. The penis is sort of this sort of symbol of male dominance and machismo and bravado and all these things.
But we're probably talking about like the UK and America, because in India the penis is celebrated. Like every temple has a lingam in, and statues outside the temples have these huge penises on, and it's like it's celebrated there. I mean, it'd be ripped down if it was in London.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In India, in Thailand, Japan also has penis festivals too, phallic festivals too. So yeah, I mean, there are places where that still exists. I think a lot of it is in our just Western culture, and a lot of it probably stems from Christianity and the shame and the sexual oppression that from that too. So.
It's funny, anyway, we probably shouldn't go into that subject, but Jesus didn't want that.
No,
anyway,
no.
There's probably enough there.
Well, it's funny because I was actually talking with someone about this recently, is that I've sort of had this epiphany about Jesus. I think that a lot of queer people, at least my experience, almost sort of have an aversion to Jesus just because of all the oppression that Christianity has forced upon us. In my practices over the years, I've always been more towards either towards the Eastern religions, like Hinduism and Taoism, but also like European paganism and witchcraft and the occult and alchemy and all these things too. But I sort of stayed away, for the most part, from a lot of Judeo-Christian Abrahamic stuff, just because of the negative feelings that I had for it, just because of, the experiences that I've had. But over the past several years, I've sort of had this, my interpretation of Jesus is that he is a spirit of love. I think that ultimately that's what he represents. He's supposed to represent, sort of this universal love. I mean, the Sacred Heart of Jesus. I mean, that's a very potent symbol. And also, Jesus has a lot of phallic aspects as well, a lot of phallic qualities that the church doesn't like to recognize, but they are there. Historically, they are there. And there was actually a very wonderful book written by, I can't remember the guy's name. It's Leo something, but it's called The Sexuality of Christ. And it sort of analyzes Christ as sort of a sexual figure, but not always a sexual figure. There's sort of a symbolism too, even in the like the infant Christ, like the baby Christ. In a lot of art, there's a lot of focus on his genitalia, both as an infant and as an adult. You know, and you figure, you know, I mean, he was, I mean, historically, I guess biblically, I would say rather, he was naked when he was crucified and when he was resurrected. But in a lot of art, you know, he's always, you know, very carefully censored with a loincloth, just, you know, in that area. But by doing that, by putting this loincloth just in that area, it sort of accentuates it more. You know, it sort of puts more emphasis on it. You know, just on this area.
So
there's a lot of that.
Also, like, Jesus was in lots of ways very tantric because he was completely non-judgmental. You know, he didn't judge the prostitutes. He didn't judge any gay people.
Right.
He doesn't even mention gay people. And he says that thing like, God is love. And I think, I'm going to put all theologies, what they called? Theologians.
Theologians, yeah.
But rather than, like, the way I see it is, rather than him saying God is love, what he's trying to say is, like, what you call God is actually love.
Right.
You know, you're thinking of that God is a man, but it's love. It's what we were saying. It's here. It's in you. He says that. He says all this stuff. It's just, it's, you know, sort of adjusted to how you want it to be interpreted.
Yeah, it's all about the interpretation.
I mean, a lot of Eckhart Tolle's stuff, which is all about the power of now, again, which is Tantra. I'm not sure he'd say it is, but it is. He talks about Jesus a lot in his books. And sort of, you know, says about how Jesus basically had that same vision about living in the moment and surrendering. I mean, gosh, we talk about surrender a lot in Tantra, about surrendering to the universe, surrender to what's happening in your life and allowing that. And Jesus is the biggest kind of message of that. You know, he just let everything happen to him because he had complete trust in love.
Yeah. I think Jesus was a yogi.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I think so. I think that he sort of embodies that.
We were going to say maybe about certain different case studies. I think there were just a couple of clients that I wanted to tell you about their stories, just because it's really sort of interesting to me for what happened. One of my clients, he came to me. He was in his 60s, late 60s. He's married. He got kids, and he said, I've always had this kind of thing of maybe being attracted to men, maybe not being quite sure. He said, so I wanted to come to see you because then I can be in a safe space to explore this. And then if it's not going where I want, I can go, okay, I know where I am now. This isn't what I thought, etc. So I started doing sort of some coaching with him, and we were looking into his story, and he had terrible body image. And his story was all about how he went to a boys' school and he was really badly bullied from a boys' school. He had a really bad relationship with his father. He's got no male friends. And I started to kind of get a feeling that this wasn't about him wanting to have sex with a man. It was about him wanting to feel loved by a man. So I said, we can go further, however, as long as it's within our boundaries, we can sort of go further. But why don't we just start with me sort of holding you? So I always start with sort of some breathing and eye gazing and undressing. And then after the sort of the first ritual part of it, I just lay with him, holding him while we spoke. And that's all we did. Just for 2 hours, we just lay there and I held him and it was just so beautiful. I thought, I don't know where else, you can't get that at the hospital. You can't go to a hospital and say, they'll give you antidepressants. Where actually all you need is for a man to hold you and tell you that you're worthy. I see you, that you're loved. I just think this work is amazing for being able to do that for people. And then another one was a guy who it doesn't really matter what his sexuality is. I mean, I sort of don't ask that, so I don't need to mention it. But he was abused when he was very young by his uncle. So he had really the thought of homosexuality and gay made him sort of angry. It brought up these feelings of anger and resentment towards somebody that would do that to, another man, kind of thing. So he came to me because he said, I really want to put this to rest. So that, I see gay people, I have this kind of, it brings up these feelings, but not towards them, but towards this kind of, it brings up the trauma, it triggers his trauma. So we just spent this beautiful, doing the ritual, going into a tantric experience, and it was really beautiful. And afterwards, he said that it was the first time in his life he'd been able to think of being, a male and male encounter as being something positive. Mm-hmm. He said, I'd never need to do it again now. I just know that, and it was sort of raising sexual energy, but it wasn't that you would say it wasn't like we had sex, but there was, it was intimate touch. But for him to be able to see that there can be something positive in that experience, because he'd always thought it was something evil and something bad, because obviously he'd been completely, sort of taken advantage of and manipulated. And to see that he had control of it, I think that's probably what it is. He had control of the situation, and he could say, I can make this something positive.
Yeah.
I just think it's amazing. Every time something happens, I'm just like, wow. It is like creating magic. It is magic.
It is magic. It is. Yeah, I like especially the first example that you gave, because I think a lot of men are closed off between not necessarily intimate touch between men, but just touch between men in general. We're just so touch starved. And I think that's really why it's so important to have these spaces where men can have that sort of closeness and intimacy and connection, because a lot of us are missing it from our lives. Either just because it's just been missing, or we we've sort of suppressed it because our culture has demanded that we do that. Not necessarily gay or queer men, but just men in general.
Yeah. I mean, how strange to think just because you're men, you can't hold each other.
Yeah, to hold each other, or to hug, or to cuddle, or even to hold hands, or even just to kiss each other, not in a sexual way, but a kiss. I mean, any of those things. They're so taboo between men. They can't express them openly in public. It's it's unmanly, or it's whatever.
Yeah. But even my dad is still so uncomfortable hugging me. I force myself to myself on him. I'm like, give me a hug, and he's sort of like so uncomfortable with just with touch.
Yeah.
Strange. Well, it's not strange because it's so common. It's just really sad. But I think it's getting better. I think more men are now becoming more happy to have some touch with other men, and it's so gorgeous when they do.
It is.
I don't know if you've got any sort of straight friends that are, and when they're, when they want to hug you and they want to, it's just like, oh my God, it feels so accepting as well, like validating, which is probably not a good balance, but it does. It feels like, God, there's this straight guy who's telling me I'm all right.
It's funny. I sort of have an experience with that. So a couple of years ago, I did a couple workshops at a nudist naturist festival, and it's a whole big festival. But it was actually my first time doing a men's group. I was asked to do it, and it was something that I always wanted to do. So my first men's group experience on my own, like actually facilitating a group, was at a nudist festival. But aside from that, there were other things happening there, and there were bands playing and stuff. And there was this one band that played there. They were wonderful. I thought that they were great. And a couple of the guys in the band, like straight guys, like after they had played, we were just hanging around and talking, and then we had this big naked male group hug. It was just wonderful just to share this moment with them, these people that I had never met before this day, and just to share this sort of this big intimate hug between different types of men. There was no boundaries between us, and we were just connected for that moment. It's just such a beautiful thing, and I don't have many examples of that in my life, like that kind of experience. You know what I mean?
No, that's great. They're the forward-thinking men.
Yeah,
they must have been to.
Well, I think people in these sort of communities or whatnot, like the nudist and naturist people, are a little bit more open in general anyway about these things too. Yeah. Just because everyone is naked, everyone is vulnerable, everyone is open and exposed to the world. So you sort of have to let your guard down a little bit, and and just be comfortable in your skin, and I think that sort of comes naturally in those environments, to people who experience them. And I think that's another important thing too, is that I think men need opportunities for social nudity as well, because we spend so much of our lives in clothes, and when a lot of us don't see other naked men, in any context, and especially within a close context.
Because that whole nudism kind of topic is a different thing, because there's so much to say about it. But when you are in a nudist environment, so much body image goes away, because you realize that you're all so different. Every single person is different. So you don't start going, oh my God, I don't look like that, because there is no that. Yeah. That is on a magazine somewhere that was created, Photoshop. And we're all so different. So a lot of that, it can be really healing for people.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's very healing, and it's very liberating, because we do spend so much of our lives behind this barrier of clothing, this artificial barrier, and a lot of that too also speaks to cultural ideas about masculine presentation. The clothes that we wear, and to have all of that stripped away and to just be humans is just such a beautiful thing. Just to see this diverse group of humans where all of our bodies are completely different, and yet we're all equal at the same time. You know what I mean?
People seem to lose a little bit of ego, an ego in the sense of like kind of self-identity, rather than like, I don't mean like big-headedness, but they lose a bit of like a thing they've created with outfits, and some of that seems to go. You get more authentic people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It definitely sort of opens you up to a more authentic expression, just because you have nothing to hide behind. You just have yourself as you are, and I think it's important also to see the beauty in that too. To see the beauty in your naked body.
Amen.
Amen. Do you have any upcoming events or activities that you would like to share? Anything you want to promote?
Actually, yeah. When I'm coming to Fort Lauderdale in June, and we're holding a workshop on the 10th and 11th of June. Myself and my colleague Armand, and that's going to be the multi-orgasmic man.
Oh yeah.
Doing there. Mm-hmm. And also while we're there, we're going to be doing on a couple of the days we might be doing a four-handed massage for people. So that's happening in Florida. Then I'm doing the Tantra Love Festival in Glastonbury in August. That's for Tantra for gay men, and people come from all over the world for that. There's about 150 men there.
Oh, nice.
And it's real fun. Like, the basis of it is festival, let's have fun, but there's also lots of tantric practices and the love temple, and you can have a feast of tantric experiences as well as having just dancing and having fun.
Yeah.
And next weekend I'm in Zurich, naked male festival, doing some cock massage classes.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. that sounds like something I would like to at least witness, if not be a part of.
It's amazing, actually, because like most people, myself included 2 years ago, like you have one way of wanking. It's that up and down, and when there was Joseph Kramer, you may have come across him, but yes. I mean, there are probably other people doing it, but he then sort of, made it his body of work, or the cock massage sort of techniques. Yeah. Oh my God, it's amazing. Switching you can mix it up, and
I have the videos that he did on cock massage. Yeah, no, Joseph Kramer has done wonderful work for years. I mean, he was really revolutionary. I mean, he really, sort of set a lot of this stuff in motion. I mean, there wasn't a field of sexology before he invented it. So where is the best place for listeners to find out more about your work?
On Twitter, I am Firefly Tantra. On Instagram, I'm Firefly Tantra, and on Facebook, I'm Firefly Tantra. But my website, which is www.fireflytantra.com, is probably the best place. Quite easy to remember, right?
It is, yeah. I think I can remember. Well, Firefly, thank you so much for joining me today. It's really such an honor to have you here, and it's really wonderful to speak with you and get to know you a little better. Yeah,
it's been wonderful. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you so much.
All
Have a wonderful evening.
Lots of love. Bye-bye.
Bye.